friends, it's Valerie. Welcome back to this week's What's for Dinner. If you're new here, I would love if you would hit that subscribe button and join my YouTube family. And if you guys could leave a like or a comment down below on this video, it really does help my channel. I am getting so close to 1,000 subscribers, and I just want you to know how much I appreciate you. So I'm gonna have to figure out a way to give back to you guys soon and find some type of giveaway. So stay tuned for that coming up sometime soon here as I approach on the 1,000 mark. So this week I have 3 meals for you and hope that you enjoy them as much as we did. One of them is one of my new favorites now. If you've ever looked for a way to like cook up lunch meat, like you have a bunch left over, you need to use it up, but you don't want like cold sandwiches, this cooks it up, making a gravy, and it makes like an open face sandwich. It was just such a delicious meal. Definitely a top favorite now. The only way I'm probably going to be using up a lunch meat when I need to like that. And let's just get started. This first recipe is jalapeno popper Hasselback chicken. To start off, you're going to need 4 pieces of bacon. I'm just doing some extra so I can have for later on in the week. Then to a medium bowl, you're going to add 2 ounces of cream cheese, softened. Mine wasn't really very softened, and that was definitely a mistake on my part. It made it a little harder. Then to that, you're going to add about a 1/4 cup of shredded cheddar cheese. Mine's probably a little bit extra. And then you need a 1/4 cup of pickled jalapenos, chopped up. So I'm just quickly chopping them up. That's your preference. You could even use like diced green chilies, anything like that. The jalapenos that I used were actually really hot. I would prefer a more mild jalapeno, but it was still very delicious. And that's why you see me only adding part of them, because I'm afraid that it was going to be too hot, so I left some out until I mixed it all together. Then I tasted that mixture. Now I'm cutting up 4 slices of that bacon. Just going to like roughly cut that up here. And you're just adding all of these things to your bowl, and I'm just going to go ahead and mix that all together until all those ingredients are well combined. And of course, had my cream cheese actually been softened fully, it would have been a little bit easier. I had to work with it a bit, but another tip for that is if it wasn't softened, I should have just stuck it in the microwave for a few seconds. Now you're going to need 2 boneless, skinless chicken breasts. I kind of trimmed mine up a bit to remove any excess like fat. And you are going to like create slices in these, like 6 slits. Those are going to be like, if you've ever had like Hasselback potatoes, you're doing that same concept. You're just going to cut those slits and make sure not to cut all the way through your chicken. And repeat that on both chicken breasts. And then you're just going to go ahead and fill them with that mixture as evenly as you can throughout all of those slits. And I'm going to say, I recommend this definitely to have your chicken breast be similar in size, because I had got 2 from the like butcher area, and then one was much like thinner than the other, and it really affected my cooking time there. So I put this in the air fryer for 350 for about 15 minutes, and it needed more time, just a couple more minutes on the thin one, but the other one needed a good like 6 more minutes. It was drastic difference. So I had to pull the other one off early, and then this one was getting too browned on top, so then I placed like some foil, but of course it's the air fryer, so it's gonna fly. So then I placed like a silicone lid to hold it down. A little bit of fiasco. I should have just pounded it to be like an even thickness, but it's all good. And then you're going to take your remaining 1/4 cup of shredded cheddar cheese and put that on top of your chicken, and then you're just going to go ahead and air fry that for like an additional minute just to melt that cheese on top. I didn't show myself seasoning this, but don't add any salt. I definitely wouldn't recommend adding salt. It definitely would be a little too much sodium with all the bacon and cheese and all of that, but definitely sprinkle that with some pepper and garlic powder. That's what I did, and it helped to give some flavor to that chicken as well. But you do have all these nice toppings that were in there, bacon, cheese, all of that cream cheese, so it's a lot of delicious flavor. I highly recommend this. This was absolutely delicious, and I just served this with some white cheddar mac and cheese and some corn. Really easy, quick sides. This next meal is going to be a French onion and beef casserole. For this, I'm kind of changing up the recipe. It called for some French onion dip, and I was going to be using sour cream, but then I realized I didn't have enough to reach 15 ounces. So I used whatever sour cream I had, and I added the difference in ounces in cream cheese that I kind of softened in the microwave. Then I'm adding one of these like onion soup packets to that, and I just mixed that all together. And I added some milk as well to give it like more of that like creamy consistency that the Lay's like French onion dip would have had, being just more of like a thinner dip. So I just continued to stir that and add milk until I feel like it had that consistency, because this is what's going to be coating our noodles. And now in my pan, I'm just cooking up a pound of ground beef, and I'm just basically using my meat chopping tool to break that up. And then we're going to go ahead and season that with some salt and pepper, as well as some garlic powder, onion powder, and some Worcestershire sauce. And none of this is in the recipe. I can't like leave the meat not seasoned at all like that. So I had to add just some basic seasonings to that, and I always like to add Worcestershire sauce to my beef. And I'm just going to continue to mix that all together and break it up until it's like a finer, like the way I like it, because I don't like my beef all chunky. And in the meantime, I'm going to be cooking up these egg noodles. You need about 10 ounces of egg noodles, and there I'm just adding them into that water. And now that the beef is cooked, I drained it, and I'm just going to pour in that mixture, that cream mixture that we made a minute ago. And if you're just using dip, just go ahead and add that in. And then you're going to go ahead and add in 2 cans of condensed cream of mushroom soup. So I'm just going to go ahead and add that in. It looks like 2 different cans because I had 1 Aldi can and 1 Campbell's can. So they look slightly different in color, but they are both cream of mushroom soup. And then just go ahead and mix that all together with your meat. And once my noodles were cooked to al dente, just for package directions like al dente, I'm just going to go ahead and drain those and pour those into the same pan and just fold those noodles into that like soup mixture. We're just going to get those noodles all coated. We're folding to be gentle so we don't just like break up all our noodles. And you do want to make sure that you do keep the noodles at al dente. Like when you're boiling them, do not let them get too soft, because you are still baking this and you don't want them too soft. Or maybe you do, that's your preference, go ahead and do that. And now I'm just taking my 9x13 baking dish. I sprayed a little bit of cooking oil on the bottom, and I'm just going to go ahead and scoop that soup and noodle mixture right into the bottom of that and make a nice even layer. Now the recipe calls for 1 cup of French's fried onions, and then you're just going to go ahead and sprinkle those on top of that mixture. And I didn't really measure that out. I was just going to use this whole small container. It seemed about a cup's worth, but I did read comments on this recipe, and people were saying they wanted more of that crunch. So I love that, like when you have a nice crunchy layer on top. So I went ahead and added all of that, and I had some of these crispy Hatch chilies that I got on clearance, and I thought this would be a perfect way to use some of these up. So I just added some more of that on top to add more of that crunch, as well as a nice little extra bit of flavor. They're not too like hot or anything like that, but they're pretty tasty. And you're going to bake that at 350 degrees for 25 to 30 minutes, and this is nice and golden brown on top. I'm serving this with some broccoli florets. This is just the Aldi brand. This had so much delicious flavor with all that like onion like flavors and taste, and I like the addition of those Hatch chilies. They're definitely not necessary. You could add extra like fried onions. This would also be really good with green beans. It was absolutely delicious. This last meal is hot turkey sandwiches with gravy. Now to a large skillet over medium heat, I'm going to go ahead and add in 2 sticks of butter and let that melt. And then the recipe calls for 1.5 teaspoons of black pepper. I'm only doing 1/2 teaspoon because I'm using peppered turkey. And then you're going to go ahead and add in 1/2 teaspoon of poultry seasoning and just whisk that in. And now we're going to go ahead and take a cup of flour, and I'm just slowly incorporating that and whisking as I go. This is just going to help you create that like roux and gravy in general without being like chunky. You don't want it chunky. You want to make sure everything stays nice and smooth. So by adding it a little at a time, it really does help. And just continue to do that until you've whisked in the whole cup of flour. And now we're going to go ahead and gradually whisk in 4 cups of chicken broth. I'm just using like water that I mixed with Better Than bouillon, and then I ran out of that, so I added a bouillon cube for the remainder. And once you start adding that in, this is gonna thicken up really quick. So again, I'm just mixing it with my whisk and gonna continue to add that in. It's gonna look chunky at this point, and that kind of worried me, but it worked out fine. The more I whisked and the more liquid I was adding in there, it just broke up and became a nice, smooth, actually very delicious gravy. So yeah, just gonna go ahead and add that in, and then you're gonna need 2 cups of water. And I was starting to worry that that was gonna be like, this was gonna be a lot of really runny gravy and just way too much for what I was looking for, but it actually worked out great. So I ended up using the full 2 cups of water and also just whisked that in. And then the recipe calls for 1 to 1.5 pounds of lunch meat. So I'm just using the turkey lunch meat that's peppered. I definitely think you could get away with 2 pounds. If you needed to use 2 pounds up, this amount of gravy would still work great with that. So if you're looking to add a little bit extra to continue to feed your family, don't worry, you can add that extra little bit of meat in and the gravy balance will still be fine. I'm just kind of separating these slices of turkey so they don't all stick together, so I can get them nice and coated with that gravy. And I'm going to be using this sourdough bread here. I've been really loving this sourdough bread, and I'm going to cut that into some nice slices. And I chose to stick these under the broiler so they would get nice and toasty, but just go ahead and make sure to watch those. You don't want to leave them for too long, 1 minute to 2 minutes, just depending on your oven, just watch it. It really helps to make it to where they don't just get super soggy, and it adds a really nice crunch, and on this sourdough is delicious. So I just served that lunch meat and gravy on top. I served these with some instant mashed potatoes and some green beans that I did in the air fryer. This was, wow, amazing. My favorite of all these meals is definitely this. I'm not a huge leftover person, but I kept wanting this, and it's definitely going to be the way I start using up my lunch meat if I have a lot that I need to use up for sure. Thanks so much for watching, friends. Don't forget to give this video a like, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future What's for Dinner videos, and I hope you all are having an amazing week.